Hello again and welcome back for part 6 of the Sweet Harmony Mandala throw. We're going to start on row 46 and I'm working in the white yarn for this row. I'm going to, as always, start with a slip knot onto the hook, and we're starting in the corner 2 space here. We're going to work 4 of the double 2 together clusters with a chain in between. So we've got 1, chain 1, 2, chain 1, 3, chain 1, and the last one to make 4. Oops. Just pop the hook back through the loops there, yarn over and pull through all of the loops. We're now going to skip the first stitch, which is slightly hidden, and we're going to work a half double into every stitch all the way along the row, but we're also going to skip the last stitch before the corner as well. So we're skipping that first one and then just working a half double into every stitch all the way along. So if you want to pause the video, once you've worked the 4 double 2 together clusters, skip a stitch and then half double across to the end, and I'll meet you there. So I've reached the end of this side. I'm going to skip that next stitch, which is the single from the corner, and I'm going to work the 4 double 2 together clusters into the chain space there. I'm going to also catch those 2 yarn tails as well from the previous row. So we're doing a double 2 together cluster, oops, let's start that again, and we're into the chain space. So we've got the first double 2 together cluster, chain 1, a double 2 together cluster, chain 1, double 2 together cluster, making 3, chain 1, and then a final double 2 together cluster, all into that same corner space. Again, skip that first stitch, and then we're going to do the same as we did on that first side and work a half double into every stitch all the way along to the next corner. So if you pause the video now at this point and work all 4 sides of this row, and I'll meet you to start the next row. And on to row 47. Again, just slip knot onto the hook, and we're going to start in the middle of the 4 double crochet 2s together. We're going to start in that chain space that forms the corner and work 2 half doubles. I'm using the medium of the 3 greys for this one. So 2 half doubles, a chain 1, and then another 2 half doubles to form the corner. I'm going to work a front post half double around the first cluster and a front post half double around the next cluster. We're now going to work a back post double around every stitch along the row, all the way along to the next corner, and again we're going to do the half doubles around the two clusters here at the end, and then join with a slip stitch into that first cluster there. So again, it's another nice simple row to work. All four sides are exactly the same. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point and work the four sides the same, we've got a half double, chain one, half double into the corner, two front post half doubles, one around each of these two clusters, and then we go straight into the back post doubles all the way along to the end, and then work the two front post half doubles around these last two clusters, and I'll meet you for the start of the next row. And on to row 48. I'm using the palest of the blues for this row, and again we're going to start in the corner space. We're going to work two doubles, chain one and two doubles. We're now going to front post double around the next four stitches. So we've got the two half doubles that formed the corner, and we've got the two front post half doubles that were around the two clusters. 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're now going to skip one stitch, and we're going to work a V-stitch into the next stitch. So we've got the two doubles, chain one, two doubles. We've got 4 front post doubles, and then we've skipped a stitch and worked a V-stitch. We're now going to skip 2 stitches. We're going to work V-stitches all the way along the side until we get to this last front post, back post double that we did here. You will find now that each row is going to take quite a bit longer to do because we've got so many more stitches on each row. And you'll probably find that this blanket also is a little bit thicker than the previous blankets that we've done, but that's because of these quite close knit panels that we've had on this blanket. It makes it a thicker, warmer throw. So I'll let you carry on working the V-stitches, remembering to just skip 2 stitches in between each one and work those all the way along this row. So again, as always, I'll let you pause the video rather than watching me work my V-stitches, and I'll meet you when we get to the end here. When you reach the corner on this row, you will have 37 V's along the row between the corners, and then as we get to the end here, we've got the last 4 front post doubles, one around each of the front post half doubles from the last row, and then we've got the 2 stitches there left that formed the corner. Going to do a front post around each of those 2 stitches, and we're going to, as always, join with a slip stitch into that first stitch, snip off the yarn, pull through and fasten off. So if you want to do a quick stitch count at this point, just to make sure that you've got the 37 V stitches, the next row we're going to be working the popcorns again, so we'll end up with the same amount of popcorns as we've got the V stitches, and again I'll be working in the white yarn for the next row. So we're now working round 49, and we're going to start again in that corner stitch and work 2 doubles, a chain 1 and 2 doubles. We're now going to work a front post double into the next 6 stitches. So we've got the 2 doubles that formed the corner, and then we worked 4 front post doubles in the last row, so we're going to work over these 6 stitches. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. We're now going to skip the first half of the V. We're going to work the first popcorn straight into this first V here. So depending if you're doing a 4 double popcorn or a 5, we'll work the popcorn there into that first V stitch. Chain 1 to fasten off the V and a chain 1, and then we go straight across into this next V and work the next popcorn. So we're going to work this all the way along the side, until we reach those last 6 stitches at the end. And we're going to work the same as we did at the beginning. We'll work 6 front post doubles into those 6 stitches. So it's a straightforward pattern repeat again on this row. Working popcorns all the way along, and as I said on the last row, you will have 37 popcorns, 1 sitting in each of the V stitches. And don't forget, after the popcorn we do the chain 1 to fasten off the popcorn where we pull tight, and then we've got a chain after the popcorn, so the 1 to pull tight and then a chain. We're just going to carry on all the way along the side until we reach the last 6 stitches. We're going to work 6 front post doubles in those 6 stitches there, and then the 2 doubles, chain 1 and 2 double in the corner. When we get round to the last side, we'll do the last 6 front post doubles and then join into that first stitch with a slip stitch and fasten off the yarn. Our next row is row 50. I'm using the palest of the 3 greys. Again, starting in that corner space, we're going to work 2 doubles, chain 1 and 2 doubles. We're now going to work 8 front post doubles. We're going to work around the front post doubles from the last row. We've got 6 of those, and there's also the 2 stitches that formed the corner. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Once we've done the 8 front post doubles, we're going to work into the top of this V from the row below the popcorn row. We're going to do a double into that stitch. We're now going to work a front post double around the popcorn, and we're going to work 2 doubles into this V from the previous row before the popcorn row. So we've got 2 doubles into that space there, and then a front post double around the popcorn and 2 doubles into the V stitch, a front post double around the popcorn, and again 2 doubles into that V stitch. So that's the pattern repeat for this side, working 2 doubles. We only had the 1 double in the first space after the front post, but we've got 2 doubles now in between each of the popcorns, and we've also got a front post double around each popcorn as well. So we're going to carry on until we work to the end of the side. So again, I'll let you pause the video at this point until you've worked your stitches, and I'll meet you when we get to this last popcorn of the side. There is, for anyone wanting a permanent copy of the written pattern, it's available on Ravelry as a PDF download. And also don't forget our Facebook group if you want to join. Both the links are under the video on here. Just work those last 2 doubles that form between the popcorns. Front post double around the popcorn, and then at the very end, like we did at the start, we're just going to do 1 double after that last popcorn, and that leaves us then with the 8 front post doubles to finish off the round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that work around the 6 front post doubles from the last row, and then we've got the 2 doubles that formed the corner, and that completes this round. We're going to just join as always with a slip knot, snip off the yarn, oops, pull through and fasten off, and we're ready for the next round. And on to row 51. We're going to work the treble 2 together clusters to form the corner of this row. So we start in that corner space and work the first treble 2 together, chain 1, and then we're going to work a second treble 2 together, chain 1, a third treble 2 together, chain 1 and a last treble 2 together, and that forms the corner for this row. We're now going to front post treble around the next 10 stitches. So we've got the 8 front post doubles from the last row, and we've also got the 2 doubles that formed the corner. So front post treble around all of these stitches, 10 altogether. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So we've got the 4 treble 2 together clusters, and then we've got 10 front post trebles along the 2 doubles and the 8 front post doubles from the previous row. We're now just going to work a back post double around each stitch to the end of where we've got the popcorns with the doubles. Once we reach the front post doubles, we're again going to do the front post trebles over those stitches. So starting in that first double, we work a back post double, and then we're just going to work a back post double around every stitch all the way along the row. So we've got the 2 back post doubles between the popcorns, we've got the back post double around that front post double that went over the popcorn on the previous row. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point and carry on working your back post doubles along this row, and then when you reach the corner, or when you reach the last 8 front post doubles, we're going to do 8 front post trebles over those stitches and 2 front post trebles over the 2 doubles, and then onto the corner, which is the the treble 2 together cluster, chain 1, and then the same again until we've got 4 of the treble 2 together clusters in the corner there. And I'll meet you when we get to the end of this round. So I've reached the last double that was in the V stitch, working the front post double, the back post double around that stitch. We're now working the front post trebles in those last 10 stitches. The final 2 are worked around the 2 doubles that formed the corner from the last row. And then we just join into the top of that first treble 2 together cluster, fasten off the yarn, pull through, and that concludes that row. We're ready to start our next row. On to row 52. I'm using the darkest of the 3 blues on this row, we're going to start in the corner space where we've got the two treble two together clusters. In the space between the two and the two, we're going to join with half doubles. So I'm going to work 2 half doubles, there's 1 and 2, chain 1, and we work a second lot of 2 half doubles. So we've got 2 half doubles, a chain 1 and 2 half doubles into that chain space. We're now going to skip 1 stitch and we're going to half double into each of the next 2 stitches. So we've got a half double and a half double. We're now going to work a half double in every stitch all the way along the side until we get to the next corner. So as it's a nice easy row, you'll be able to pause the video at this point and work your half doubles all the way along until you get to the corner space, where again we're going to work 2 half doubles, a chain 1 and 2 half doubles, and then just work the half doubles all the way along the side. On the written pattern it will say on this row that the corners are worked as 2 doubles, chain 1 and 2 doubles. On this tutorial I've done half doubles rather than the doubles. It's not going to make any difference at all to the size or the shape of the throw, whichever you've actually done. So if you're working from the written pattern and you've started with doubles, that's fine. If you've worked just from the tutorial and you've worked half doubles, again that's going to be perfectly fine. As you can see on mine, I've worked as half doubles, 1 and 2. So we just join into that first stitch with a slip stitch, fasten off the yarn and pull through. Row 53 and row 54 are both exactly the same, so it's up to you again whether you do your 2 rows in the same colour or in 2 different colours. I'm going to work mine in the medium blue and the pale blue, but it is entirely up to you if you want to do 2 rows the same colour or you want to use 2 different rows. Sorry, 2 different colours. We're going to start in the corner and we start with a single, two chain and a single. We're now going to skip a stitch, chain 1 and work a single. So we're skipping that first stitch that's slightly hidden and working a single, chain 1, skip a stitch and work a single, chain 1, skip the next stitch, work a single, chain 1, skip a stitch and work a single. And it's exactly the same right through to the end, where we're going to do a single, 2 chain and a single in the corners. So this is row 53, and then we do exactly the same again for row 54. So it's just literally a single, chain 1, skip a stitch and a single. We work that all the way around, and as I said, it's exactly the same for row 54. So if you want to pause the video and work your 2 rows, and I'll meet you when we get to the end. For my row 54, I'm working in the paler of the blue. I did row 53 in the medium blue. and it's just the same as row 53. We're working a single, a chain one, we skip one and work a single. I'm working my singles into the chain space. Again, it's up to you whether you want to work into the chain space or into the single from row 53. I'll just show you how we work the corner. We do a chain one before we go into the corner, and then it's just a single, two chains and another single, chain one, and then we start again on that next side. So we've got 2 rows worked exactly the same with the single, a chain one, skip a stitch and work a single into the next. So depending whether you've done yours in 2 different colours or if you've done it into the same, it will look slightly different. I'll just carry on all the way around this row until we've got the 2 rows of singles, and I'll meet you for the start of the next round. And on to round 55. Going to start in that 2 chain space of the corner. We're going to work 2 half doubles, chain 1 and 2 half doubles, we're going to chain 1 and then half double into the chain space, chain 1 and half double into the next chain space. So we're skipping the single from the last row, chain 1, half double into the next chain space. I'm just going to work this all the way along the row, a half double in the chain space, skip a stitch, chain 1 and then a half double into that next chain space. So again, another quite easy round, just working those half doubles with a chain space, with a chain space in between and skipping the single. Now we just carry on all the way along to the end and then work the 2 half doubles with the chain 1 in between in the corner stitches, and I'll meet you when we get to the end of this round. And when we reach the end of this row, again we're just going to join with a slip stitch into the first of those 2 half doubles. I'm going to fasten off and pull the yarn through. And on to row 55. Row 55 is exactly the same as row 54 that we've just worked. So again, going to start in that corner space and work 2 half doubles. There's 1 and 2, chain 1 and another 2 half doubles into that same space. We then chain 1, skip those 2 stitches, work a half double into the chain space, chain 1, skip the half double and work a half double into the next chain space. So we're just going to work all the way along. As I say, it's exactly the same as the previous row, but we're working into the chain spaces of between the half doubles here. So chain 1 into the chain space and a half double, and for this one I'm working with the palest of the blues. So if you want to pause the video at this point and work all round your sides, working exactly the same as we did in the previous row. And on to row 57. For this row I'm using white yarn again. It's not a popcorn row, it's a puff stitch row, but I think it would look better in the white to follow the theme of my blanket. So we're going to start in the corner with 2 doubles, a chain 1 and 2 doubles. And then we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip to this chain space here and work a puff stitch. For mine I'm just doing a 3 loop puff stitch, but if you wanted a fatter puff, by all means do a 4 or a 5 yarn over, but I'm just going to yarn over the once, twice and 3 times. Pull through all the loops, chain 1 and into the next chain space here. I'm going to work the next puff stitch. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and a chain 1. We're just going to carry on all the way along each side, working a puff stitch into the chain space between those half doubles. So again, if you want to pause the video at this point and work all the way round all 4 sides, 2 doubles, 1 chain, 2 doubles in the corner, and then a chain 1, a puff stitch, a chain 1, and then go into the next chain space and work the next puff stitch until you've worked all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get to the end. And row 58, I'm using the medium of the 3 greys for this row. We're going to start with 2 half doubles into the corner chain space, a chain 1 and 2 more half doubles into that same chain space. We're going to skip 1, which is this stitch here, and then we're going to half double into the next stitch. We're going to half double into the chain space and a front post half double around the puff stitch, and we're just going to carry on along working a half double in the chain space, a front post half double around the puff, a half into the chain space, a half double, a front post half double around the puff stitch. So we're just going to carry on all the way along until we get to the last 2 stitches. We're going to work a half double in the first of those 2 stitches and then skip the last stitch and join with a slip stitch to the first stitch of the corner. So it's just a half double into the chain space, front post half double around the puff stitch. So I'll let you carry on and work all around this row, and I'll meet you at the other side. Row 59 is going to be the same as the row that we did with the single into the corner, 2 chain and a single. We're going to chain 1, skip these first 2 stitches straight into the chain space. We're going to work a single, chain 1, work a single, chain 1, and then we're working alternate stitches. So we chain 1, we're going to work, skip a stitch and work into the next stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, single into the next stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch and single into the next stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, single into the next. So we've got alternate singles with a chain 1 in between and skipping the stitch. So chain 1, skip a stitch and single into the next. We're going to carry on all the way along the row, working in exactly the same way. And now for the very last row of the blanket, I'm going to work a crab stitch all the way around. I don't know whether you've worked a crab stitch before, but I'll show you how it's worked. It's a single that's sort of going backwards. So we start with a slip knot onto the hook. We're going to start in this corner space. We're going to do a single. The next single is going to be to the right rather than to the left. So I'm going to chain 1 and then we work into the stitch, pick up a loop, yarn over and pull through. Then we're going to chain 1, we're going to go straight to the next chain space, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over and through 2. We go a chain 1 and then we go into the next stitch, working backwards along the row rather than forwards as we would normally do. So go to the next chain space, which is here, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over and through 2. Chain 1, into that space, pick up a loop, yarn over and through 2, chain 1. Into the space, pick up a loop, yarn over, through 2, and it forms this sort of a ridged stitch that goes all the way along. So I'll just do a few more just so that you know how the stitch is worked. But chain 1, into the next chain space, pick up a loop, yarn over through 2, chain 1, and again into the next space, chain 1 and work the next crab stitch. If you prefer not to use this stitch, you can quite easily just do a single all the way around the row to finish off, but I just think the crab stitch is a little bit different to what we've done before. If you wanted the blanket to be bigger than your blankets come out, you can repeat this last row here with the singles, just starting in the corner with the single, chain 2, single, and then chain 1, skip a stitch, work a single, chain 1, skip a stitch and work a single, and so on. And you can do that as many times as you want to increase the size. It will be this little band here that you would be repeating, and you can just carry on doing that as many times as you want until your blanket's the size that you want it to be. So I'll carry on just working a few more of these crab stitches so that you can see how the stitch works. Don't forget the chain 1 in between, into the space, pick up a loop, yarn forward through 2, chain 1, into the space, pick up the stitch, yarn over through 2, chain 1. We're just going to carry on all the way to the corner. Once you reach the corner, again you will do 2 crab stitches into the corner stitch with the chain 2 in between. Just take a little bit of getting used to, because it's working in the opposite direction to what we would normally work. So I'll just pause, I'll let you pause the video and work your crab stitches to the corner, and I'll show you how to do that corner stitch before we end off. So coming up to the last, oops, I'm not sure whether I did a chain 1 after, yes I did, into the space, pick up the loop, chain 1 into the next space, chain 1, I've come to the final space, which is the corner space. So again, we're going to chain 1, do the crab stitch, and then work 2 singles, and then we're going to just join into that first stitch with a slip stitch, and then we can fasten off. So that gives the crab stitch edging for this blanket, which is a little bit different to the other final rows that we've done on the previous blankets. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you're happy with the blanket that you've made. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.